Hello, everyone. Father Pat with us today on SSJ at Home for our Monday conversation. Father Pat, let's talk a little bit about your article in Sunday's Bulletin. You were inspired, I guess, is the right word to use, about the movie that you saw called The Two Popes on Netflix and the depiction that the media showed of Pope Francis and Pope Benedict.
Yeah. So it was an entertaining movie. I watched it. I guess it came out back in January, February, right? Time frame. Watched it back in there before the pandemic, and it was entertaining. But there is a kind of a narrative that the movie presents that's a standard media narrative that Pope Benedict was this intransient, God's Rottweiler, I think is the word that they like to use, that he was against change and he was dogmatic and et cetera. And then Pope Francis is this, totally apolitical, totally willing to change dogma, willing to change things, just, totally on the opposite end. And,
Mhm.
Neither caricature is right? That Pope Benedict was much more personable than what the movie portrays. It was like he was. I think at like one point, he's Pope Francis. Man, I wish I had your charm and things. I can remember when I went to Rome for the first time. My spiritual director, who had lived in Rome for a long time, he took us to a little coffee shop there by the seminary, by the North American College there, where the Americans that are studying to be a priest, where they study. He took us to a little coffee shop by it, and he said, every afternoon, he said, let's just sit here because Cardinal Ratzinger, before he was the Pope, he comes in at the times just to talk to American students and just to hang out with them. So, he was this personable guy. So it wasn't like they portrayed it. Pope Francis, on the other hand, right? I remember right after he got elected, right? Everybody was talking about how apolitical he is. And, as John Allen, a Vatican writer, pointed out, that, you don't rise up to the levels of the Jesuits that Pope Francis rode to, with being totally apolitical, right? That he had some sense of that, and he truly wanted some things to change, but that wasn't what it. He wasn't just this, undogmatic, et cetera, apolitical person. And you look at what he's done since then, right? People criticize him now for changing so much, and he really hasn't changed anything, right? All the controversial topics, he loves for the church to talk about controversial topics, but he hasn't really changed any of them.
But the media likes to get everyone to think that he has. I think that's part of the issue, right?
Yeah, and he's kind of, he loves dialogue, right? He loves controversy, right? So he keeps bringing up these controversial topics, right? I remember that one of the first things he did was form a study group to look at ordaining women deacons, and it created all this controversy, right? And then where did it go? We never heard anything from the study. He hasn't changed anything there, right? Of course, he rightfully asked about the problem of divorced and remarried and receiving communion, and the church has been in dialogue about that and all. But you look at what Pope Francis has done in that regards, and he hasn't changed dogma. He changed kind of the paperwork to get annulments. That needed to happen. The process was taking 3 and 4 years, and he wanted to get the process down to 6 months, and so he made some well-needed changes there. But when it came to changing teachings or anything about communion and that, he didn't change anything. And then most recently, the most recent controversy, the whole question of celibacy of the priesthood, right? That whole Amazon conference. Um, he let a lot of controversial things be talked about. Maybe he did some little bit controversial things with the idols and things like that, some questions. But the central question of priest being married and moving away from the celibacy, right? He he ultimately came out and said no, he wasn't going to do that, right? And the good thing in all of those is that he created these controversies, and the church grew because of it, right? I especially point to the question of priestly celibacy. Um, there have been books that have come out talking about that and all that I wish had been out when I was in the seminary, right? When they were trying to talk to us about priestly celibacy. And I've gained such a great understanding of my own celibacy just in the last year because of that controversy. Pope Benedict has co-wrote a book with a cardinal that it's just beautiful in explaining um, uh, celibacy and why and the history of it. So, Pope Francis has loved to create these controversies, and I think for the most part those have been healthy. But the teachings are still the teachings, and I think that's exactly where Pope Francis wants to be. Mm-hmm.
And briefly, in your column, in your article, you also talked about the unmoving of God and the church's position on how God never moves or changes.
Yeah, well, that was the line in the movie that I objected to the most, where Pope Francis is seeming to talk about how God's changing and all. And of course, there is a Protestant theology that God is always changing. But our Catholic theology is that no, God does not change. He's perfect, right? So there's nowhere for him to change. If you said he changed, then you'd have to say, well, was he not perfect before, or is he not perfect now? You can't change from being perfect. So, God is. We believe that God is all loving. God is perfectly loving. He doesn't change. He doesn't move. We on our journey move towards him, right? Pope Francis talks about, well, that God changes because he comes closer to us on our journey. Well, and that's true. God does come closer to us, but he's ever present with us. He can't get any closer to us. Who's changing is we are changing, right? That we are moving closer to him. When we feel his presence closer, it's not because he's moved, it's because we've moved.
I think the same thing can be said about truth and how we have decided that truth is multi-defined in our culture today.
The church has always said that we're seeking the truth, right? That the truth is unchanging. Our understanding of the truth changes, right? And part of the way Pope Francis seeks the truth is through dialogue, and that's what's important, right? He wants the church to continue to seek that truth, but the truth doesn't change. The controversy, what Pope Francis and Pope Benedict were talking about in this movie, right? When they got into the question of does God change, is should the church change, right? And should the church change in their truths? And it's kind of funny. One of the ones that Pope Francis supposedly says in this movie is talking about celibacy and how, well, celibacy didn't come until the 12th century, and so obviously the church changed there. Well, no, that's not true. There is signs that celibacy was there from the beginning, in the church. But even that, right? That's not an eternal truth, and the church will even say that's not an eternal truth. So that changing doesn't matter. Pope Benedict used to talk about the hermeneutics of Reformation, right? About how things do change. Our understanding changes, right? The truth doesn't change, but our understanding of that truth can evolve.
Father Pat, thanks for your words and for your time today. We'll talk to you again probably Wednesday of this week.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.